Americans as a civilization like everything in extremes. Either it has to be the biggest or the smallest, oldest or newest, highest or lowest. Even the super has to be in the superlative. You get that while visiting any of those famous touristy places or American museums. By that count, return of Donald Trump to the White House is a coming together of politics and that civilizational impulse. Victory of Trump is Trumpist in scale. America has never been redder in its entire political existence. From the White House to the Senate, from the Congress to the swing states, from the Supreme Court to the Electoral College. It's all Republican, all red, all Trump. It's that moment when the pendulum has swung to the extreme, which means it had swung the other extreme with Democrats pushing the envelope. With imposition of gender choices on infants, with the tyranny of the pronouns, with gender-neutral toilets, with the defunding of police forces, with hypocrisy on climate change, with promotion of men and women's sports in the name of queer sensitivities, with campuses spawned to pro-Palestine protests, with so much else, the Democrats swung it to the extreme. USA had never been that awkward. It contradicted decades of America's in-your-face masculinity projected through Hollywood. Democrats thought Trump, being a bad character and a convicted felon, would do the job. They failed to read the angst of a culture that was feeling shackled. Something had to give. It was, in fact, building up. That's why, amid all the liberal capture of narrative, sequel to the 1986 action thriller Top Gun, that typical product of American machoism, was a big success when it released last year. With campuses captured by pro-Palestine mobs, American corporates quietly started a new movement, skill before degree. Simply put, they don't need a college degree on your CV if you have the required skills. The movement has 300 plus of the Fortune 500 companies now part of it. The picture of Dana Bash holding Joe Biden hands in a daughterly manner as Trump walked away after their joust in the CNN-hosted first presidential debate was a giveaway moment for the mainstream media. Trump went to Joe Rogan and made the CNN irrelevant. Elon Musk was not invited to the Electric Vehicles Summit in 2021 by Biden. Look what he did in 2024. It is possible that apart from Trump himself, Musk might be the most consequential influencer of this election. A star is born is how Trump acknowledged it in his victory speech. Tech evangelist and venture capitalist Peter Thiel famously said in 2015 that his rule number one was not to bet against Elon. Trump supporters were called garbage. They came together to raise their stink. One personal anecdote of the Democrat pendulum that had swung far. Sometime in July last year, present US Ambassador to New Delhi, Eric Garcetti, was giving a lecture on Indo-US relations at the Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi. I was in the audience. He quoted from a very famous poem by Robert Browning. But a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's heaven for? And then, after a moment's pause, Garcetti added, since it's 2023, a person's reach should exceed his grasp. This quote is from the poem Andrea del Sarto by Browning, and it essentially means that people should strive for goals that may seem beyond their reach. The pursuit of something seemingly unattainable is what gives life meaning and aspiration, similar to the concept of heaven representing a higher ideal. Garcetti, a former mayor of Los Angeles and hence close to Hollywood, degendered a 19th century poem to fit the present American zeitgeist. Trump was lampooned that he picked the issue of illegal aliens killing pets in Springfield, Ohio. And then we had the bizarre story of the Environment Conservation Department of the Biden administration euthanizing a pet squirrel, Peanut, on doubt of rabies, prompting an internet outrage in the midst of campaign. Peanut did not die in vain, said Bill Ackman. and pictures went viral of a squirrel at Harris' campaign's stage before her concession speech, suggesting that it was the ghost of Peanut haunting the Democrats. Imagine. The Peanut story in many ways typifies this American election, highlighting the Democrat overreach and the smugness to democracy on the ground. You know what? Pendulums swing both ways. So it would in the United States too. We are in the moment of the pendulum in the Trumpism territory, but it might have already started its journey the other way. Nature abhors extremes. Let me take you back to the Trump victory speech. While praising Musk, he said, "A star is born." But that does not necessarily mean it's going to be good for Tesla's balance sheets. For Trump also said in the same speech that America has more oil than Saudi Arabia and that they are going to pump out a lot more of it, which means the global transition to electric vehicles might get pushed. How long before Elon feels the heat in his quarterly numbers? Trump faced the brute force of law enforcement agencies in what came to be called as lawfare during the campaign targeting the former president. Well, from whatever we know of Trump, it might not go unresponded. There are revenge lists already circulating on the platforms like The New Yorker and Politico of names of those in the Biden-Harris administration that could be targeted by the new Trump team for going after the president-elect last 4 years. Which brings me to my own understanding of what's happening in the United States. These are convergence of a society in a nation that's past its prime. America is grappling with its declining influence. Cold War was bipolar. Post the Cold War, America enjoyed a good 2 decades of unipolar dominance. But the last 10 years have been of negotiating a world of increasing multipolarity. Russia cares 2 hoots. Europe seems disconnected in its own postmodern shell. China is snapping at its heels. The small military skirmishes with US allies like Philippines in the South China Sea are testing waters for a larger military takeover of Taiwan. The superpower response would be an interesting watch whenever it happens. We have seen how a medieval militia like the Houthis created a global trade choke point by controlling the Bab al-Mandab Strait between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. What did the American might do? The opposite of masculinity cannot be effeminate. Obviously, a section of Americans was disturbed. A Trumpist America would withdraw from the chaos that it cannot control. Wars would see disinterest, and perhaps rightly so. It would build walls of tariffs, of immigration, even literal physical walls at its borders. There is both an opportunity and a threat for us in India as for the rest of the world. Brace for headwinds on exports of physical goods, tighter visa controls, pressure to buy more of US oil than Russian oil. There would also be some good, lesser interference in internal affairs. Bangladesh would be set right. Trump might be more appreciative of India's national security concerns. Remember, the Biden administration revived maintenance contract for the F-16 fleet with the Pakistani Air Force that was dwindling, thus giving a new lease of life to the PAF. Expect Trump to not oblige the Pakis for a bargain, of course. Ultimately, the world would negotiate this churn in American society and move on, like it always does.